Welcome to the Lenny and Maria Sanchez podcast and video show. Okay, let's dive into this complex global landscape where economies are under pressure, conflicts are reshaping alliances, and powerful systems, both seen and unseen, are competing for influence.
We're going to break this all down into 5 key parts to really get a handle on the forces at play. And we'll start right here at home with the economic pressures facing the United States.
So, first up, America's economy. Let's take a closer look at what's really going on under the hood and some of the systems that are shaping our financial lives. To get started, one source from LouRockwell.com makes a really important point. We need to know our terms. A recession, it's a limited economic contraction. It's not the same as a depression, which is way, way more severe. Knowing that difference really helps frame the warning signs we're about to talk about. And that same source points to 3 classic red flags that the economy might be in trouble. Interest rate cuts to get people spending money, job losses because people just aren't buying as much, and of course, the government stepping in to try and juice the system. But, how does this pressure actually feel in our day-to-day lives? Well, writer Charles Hugh Smith has a really provocative way of putting it. He calls it a mafioso economy, built on, of all things, extortion. He uses an example that I think we can all relate to, the big shift from buying software to just renting it. Remember when you'd buy a program for a couple $100 and you owned it? Now it's a monthly subscription, a perpetual rental that can end up costing you so much more over time. And this all leads to a huge question raised in an analysis from ShiftGold.com. Are the folks at the Federal Reserve caving to political pressure? The suggestion is they might be letting inflation run a little hot. And that has a ripple effect. It's making other countries nervous, pushing them to ditch dollars and buy up gold instead. So, you can see, what happens here at home doesn't just stay here. These economic issues don't exist in a vacuum. Let's pivot to our second section and see how these tensions are playing out on the world stage. Wow, check this out. A report from the President's Daily Brief is highlighting a massive development in the Ukraine war. They've built a new missile at home that has an incredible range of nearly 2,000 miles that can reach deep into Russian territory. And the strategic importance of this is just huge. See, by building its own long-range weapons, Ukraine gets what's called strategic autonomy. It frees them up from all the political strings that can be attached when you're using weapons supplied by the West. Now, these tensions, they aren't just between nations. Sometimes they're right inside them. An article by Philip Giraldi in the UN's Review points to some controversial diplomatic appointments under the Trump administration, like Charles Kushner, as a reflection of its foreign policy. This move drew some really sharp criticism, with former Governor Chris Christie having called Kushner's case one of the most loathsome, disgusting crimes he'd ever seen. And just to put these global conflicts into some perspective, data cited by commentator Craig Murray offers a really stark statistical comparison. It highlights the vastly different proportion of child casualties as a percentage of total deaths in the conflicts in Ukraine versus Gaza. These geopolitical tensions, they're really driven by competing ideas about how the world should work. And that brings us to our third section, where we'll look at 2 very different global models, what one source calls the U.S. economy of scarcity versus China's economy of abundance. An essay in the UN's Review draws this really sharp contrast. It describes China's model as being all about production, R&D, and infrastructure. Meanwhile, it frames the U.S. model as one driven by financialization, basically making money from money, all to maximize returns for shareholders. And the numbers presented to back this up are pretty striking. China's shipbuilding capacity is said to be 240 times that of the U.S., and its share of global manufacturing, it just dwarfs its American counterpart. But here's a twist. Despite all this fierce economic competition, another source points out the lasting power of American culture. It notes how Donald Trump's brand of nationalism, for example, actually finds a receptive audience in places like Vietnam. It's fascinating. Okay, now we're going to shift gears. We're moving away from the visible worlds of economics and politics to look at what some sources describe as deeper, less obvious systems of control and influence. We'll go from established theories to, well, some more out there ideas. First up, a piece in The Expose defines this concept of technocracy. The idea is that it's a system that wants to replace messy politics and finance with a kind of scientific social engineering to run society. And then you have theories of control that are, well, a lot more esoteric. One source, for example, talks about a hidden history where these ancient aristocratic bloodlines have been secretly infiltrating and controlling global empires for thousands of years. Shifting to something much more recent, an article from The Expose takes a hard look at Japan's pandemic response. The source points out that Japan had the highest uptake of COVID-19 mRNA vaccines in the entire world, averaging about 3.6 doses for every single person. And then, the source connects that very high vaccination rate to Japan's correspondingly high number of cumulative excess deaths. The argument being made is that this represents a huge failure for the trillion-dollar biotech industry. This brings us to our final section, and it's a big one: the hidden costs of progress. It's all about digging into the unintended consequences and asking who really foots the bill for all this innovation and globalization. One of those costs, and it's a significant one, comes from our growing reliance on AI. Just look at this projection. The data centers that power all this AI are expected to triple their share of U.S. electricity use in just a few short years. That's a huge jump. And here's another debate highlighted by the show Breaking Points. It's about foreign students in the U.S. and weighing the clear benefits against the potential costs. On one side, you're attracting the best minds from around the world, but on the other, it raises real concerns about competition for jobs in spots in universities. So when you tie all these threads together, from the economic squeeze at home and the conflicts abroad to these hidden systems of control, it really leaves us with one final crucial question. As our world keeps changing so fast and these massive systems keep evolving, who's actually paying the price for what we call progress? Thank you for listening to another session of the Lenny and Maria Sanchez podcast and video show produced and archived at the website notebooklmvideos.com.